Thank you. I'm very excited to be here in Porto. I wanted to translate one word from English into Portuguese, and the one word was liderança, leadership. So we're going to talk about the importance of leadership today, and the importance of leadership in building a better future for children so they can build a better future for themselves and all of us. So Pedro and I know it's sort of 5 o'clock and we wanted to do something to get you all involved. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not going to tell you what the question is right now, but I want you to put your hands in the air, fingers up, and you're going to answer this question on a 0 to 10 scale. So hands down for 0, all fingers up for 10, and you can do any number in between. Okay, so we've heard lots from different folks today, from Claire, from Liz, from Alberto, about early childhood being important, about changing admission systems, about accountability, about all of these things. But in your day-to-day, and this is the question, so hands in the air, in the day-to-day on a scale of 0 to 10, how often do you talk about the importance of leadership in solving educational inequity? So student leadership, teacher leadership, head teacher leadership, leadership throughout the system in education and beyond. How much of this is part of your day-to-day? So hands in the air, fingers up, 0 to 10, go.
I have to be 10. So can you give me now 3 averages of the 3 rows? So what's the first row average, Isabel? So are you, or just, so let's say the first row, I'm gonna, oh, please keep your hands up, sorry, so that we can see them. Yeah, because we're gonna average for a score. So this first row, Isabel, do you know a number? João. 6, first row, João, second row. 1. Don't average the zeros. 1.6. Ah, you're averaging the zeros. Well, okay. Hey, if it's a 0, it's 0. Okay, so 1.6. Rita, the third row. What do you think? Okay.
Okay.
7 or 8, okay.
We're going to ask anyone who said over a 7, if you can share in one sentence why you rated it a 7 or above. That would be super helpful. We'd love to hear from people. Claire.
I teach on an MBA in higher education management. I have to talk about leadership.
Any other 7s, 8s, upwards that want to share why they think it was that score? Thanks, Rita.
The importance of leading by example.
Great answer. Anyone else want to chime in on why leadership's important for them or their work? Okay, so I'm going to tell you why we think it's important for our work. Okay, so Teach for All is a global network of 53 independent social enterprises, one of which is Teach for Portugal. And our 25-year vision is that by 2040, in the communities where we work, we'll enable children to have the education and support and opportunity to shape a better future for themselves and all of us. Hopefully, those communities will inspire other communities to really raise the bar for children globally. This is our theory of change, which I'm going to talk you through and then talk you through the research we have behind the theory of change. So we think that if we could get future promising leaders recruited into a Teach for All partner like Teach for Portugal, we could really change the education system. Lots of this energy goes into banking, finance, politics, technology, but what if we could get the future leaders to teach in disadvantaged schools for 2 years? So we place them in disadvantaged schools. We get them to understand the assets that are in the schools, so the parents, the teachers, the head teachers, all of that, as well as the barriers that are helping to stop kids being able to live to their true potential. We develop these leaders over the course of 2 years with the help of teachers in school, with the help of mentors, with the help of leadership development programs. And we hope that this is a starting point where they can work with communities to develop what their vision is for students. And this is a lifelong career, so they stay on in education or working with disadvantaged kids for the rest of their career. At Teach for All, we know each of the contexts are unique, but we also think there are solutions that are shareable across borders. So Teach for All is getting different partners to learn from each other. We've also got communities of practice for our alumni and for participants to link up with each other, and we're starting to see communities really thriving. Right now, this is our research portfolio, so we've got about 50 or so studies across the board. Most of them are on the 2-year program, so thinking about who do we recruit into the program, we only accept about 6% of applicants globally, so it really is the most promising future leaders based on a number of different leadership competencies. How do we place them where the needs most? So how do we make sure they're supporting the most disadvantaged communities? How do we support and develop their own leadership and help them to develop the leadership of others? And how do we make sure they continue to be leaders in and beyond the classroom? So we've got various studies, some RCTs, some quasi-experimental studies, some process evaluations, some behavioural nudges, and if you're a big fan of Alvin Roth's work, placement algorithms. And we also look at what's the intentional effect of cultivating this leadership beyond the program. So we've got studies on our alumni in about 10 different studies, and then we've got various studies looking at how do you share solutions between different places, and then fewer studies than we like, but we're working on this to try and boost our long-term research. Okay, so I wasn't going to talk through all 60 studies, don't worry, we're not here till midnight. I was going to talk about 6 of our most promising studies that I'd love to share with you. The first one is funded by the European Commission as part of Erasmus. It's the New Way for New Talents in Teaching, NEWT. A study around socio-emotional skills in Enseña Mexico. A study around teacher preferences beyond the program in Enseña Chile. How we at Teach for All help to see if we're actually making connections across borders and our folks learning from each other. And then 2 independent studies around Teach First and Teach for America, their role in London schools and DC schools. Okay, so this is the first study. We asked 3 questions. So are we recruiting new talent into teaching? What are the characteristics of the fellows coming in? What are the perceptions of head teachers that have had a Teach for All partner fellow in their school? What are we developing during the 2 years? And are we supporting teachers during those 2 years? The study was commissioned, and we had an independent evaluator from the University of Duisburg-Essen. We had 5 partners participate, so Bulgaria, Austria, Latvia, Spain, and Romania. Is anyone from those countries in the room? Okay. There were also government participation, so we had various government partners. In Austria, it was the school board in Vienna. In Spain, it was the Basque Country regional ministry, and in others, it was the ministries of education and science. So what did we find? We found that both traditional teachers and Teach for All partner fellows all valued working with children. There was a significant difference, though, in the second criteria. Most Teach for All fellows were doing it because of a social mobility preference. Traditional teachers actually scored much higher on job security. And what did it look like for placement? So we surveyed head teachers, about 200 of them, and we asked, would you take another Teach for All fellow if the current one left the school? 95% of head teachers said they would, and 93% of head teachers said there was an adequate fit between the school and the Teach for All fellow. We also wanted to dive into sort of leadership development, and actually there was a much higher percentage of Teach for All fellows that received mentoring support during those 2-year programs than traditional teachers. They also had more opportunities for feedback, and the University of Duisburg-Essen actually designed an evaluation tool based on 21 questions of teacher knowledge and teacher competency, and those actually increased between 2016 and 2018 for the fellows in a Teach for All program. And the results were presented in March in Bulgaria, and the head of the Bulgarian Teacher Association, Yanka Takeva, actually thanked the Teach for Bulgaria team for the really great partnership. They're actually working together on new mentoring opportunities for traditional teachers in Bulgaria. Okay, I'm going to go to Mexico and tell you about Enseña por Mexico. So they had a student vision which was really about not just developing academic skills, but actually thinking about what do children really need to thrive in the 21st century skills workforce to be really great community members. So we did a quasi-experimental study of 750 traditional teachers and around 260 Enseña por Mexico fellows, which they call PEMs. And what we did was, over the course of a year, we did a baseline and an end line of these teachers in 5 states. And we looked at whether socio-emotional skills could be developed over that period. The results showed that they could, and it was actually self-management, growth mindset, self-efficacy, social awareness, and attendance rates all increased. It actually showed that if you had more exposure to an Enseña por Mexico PEM, these actually increased more. They varied by grade level, but there was a positive increase, and anyone who's a stats geek, the study was powered to a 0.1 power calculation, so anything above 0.1 would be detected with this sample size, which is quite a positive result in terms of the rigorousness of the study. We also learned that there were some things Enseña por Mexico wanted to improve. So a lot of our research isn't just about understanding the impact, but it's understanding what we could do differently. So they actually changed their leadership development programs. There was far more emphasis on their institute. So they do an initial institute of between 6 and 10 weeks, depending on the partner. They did more in the institute to prepare these teachers to develop these socio-emotional skills. They did more professional development opportunities throughout the year. So we're really encouraging folks to think about, can we learn, how do we adapt our program, what does that mean that we can share across borders? Okay, moving over to Chile. This isn't focused on participants, this is focused on our alumni. So right now, across the Teach for All network, we've got 75,000 alumni. Hopefully that will continue to grow alongside about 15,000 fellows in classrooms. So this was a study looking at Insegna Chile. They're 10 years in right now, so the study looked at 5 cohorts of their alumni. And it was a regression discontinuity. For folks who don't know what that is, basically when you apply to a program, there's a selection score. So say the selection score is 100. We looked at people who scored 98 and didn't get in, and those who scored 102. So it was a cut-off, and it was just those around the cut-off that we looked at. So the researchers actually looked at those who just got into the program with those who just didn't over 5 years of worth of alumni. So they asked them about their policy preferences and whether they were continuing to work in education or not. What they found was the policy preferences of teachers that had gone through the Insegna Chile program were different to the people who hadn't got into the program that may have stayed on in education in other ways. And the policy preferences differed around being adaptive. So they were far more likely, if you were an Insegna Chile fellow, to believe in the power of leadership, the power of the role of classroom teachers in and working collaboratively in the school. If you didn't go into the program, you were more likely to say things like reducing class size or increasing funding. So it fundamentally changed how people perceived the problems in education. We repeated this study in 5 different places and found similar things in the US, in India, in Australia, and we're about to get Peru, hopefully. And it also, in the US, was significant at reducing racial biases. So actually, the reduction in implicit bias went down for Teach for America alums compared to people who didn't get into the program. In India, you were 52% more likely to work in a disadvantaged community or in education than if you hadn't done the program, which we think sort of shows a lifelong commitment to the mission and to really changing lives for those most disadvantaged kids. Teach for All itself. There's been various sort of studies on how do you scale programs that seem to be successful in one place. And we really do want to emphasize that every place is unique, and working really closely together with community is key to any success of any partner program. But we also believe that there are some things that could be learned across borders. So every year we do a participatory feedback survey. This year we sent it to every CEO, so that was 53 CEOs, and partner staff, a select number. 268 responded. There was a response rate of about 80%, which we were quite pleased by. And what we found is 98% learned something new as being part of the network. 94 designed or started a new strategy because of Teach for All. 93 applied or adapted a strategy based on a global insight or a trend in the data, and 90% adopted another partner's innovation. Pedro, are you in one of these 90s?
Definitely.
Okay, great. So what we really want to do is learn from each other, learn from you guys, and share what we're learning, and continue to get pushed as to what we should be researching and what other questions it sparks for people. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about is Teach for America and Teach First. So Teach for America is 30 years old, so it's been there for a while. It's in over 40 regions in the US, and Teach First is England and Wales, it's not in Scotland, is the UK minus Scotland partner. They've been in place for about 15 years. So Teach for America didn't commission these studies. These were done independent of us. All of the other ones, one of our partners commissioned. But there was a study looking at the progress in DC. I don't know if anyone's familiar with DC, but it's one of the fastest improving urban school districts in the US. So the McCourt School of Governance was looking at what was behind those stories, and they actually identified Teach for All alumni action and policy shifts that helped to changed those results in DC. And a similar study which was looking at London. So anyone who's familiar with London will know that London was the lowest performing region in the UK in 2003 on GCSE results. So the results of participants when they were 16. By 2011, they were the best performing region in England. And there was a study to really understand what was going on, what happened in London over that period. And obviously there were lots of things going on, but they identified 4 things, and one of those 4 things was the presence of Teach First participants and alumni in some of the most disadvantaged schools in London. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Pedro, I'll change it over to you. One more thing I want to say is our research will continue to evolve. Teach for Portugal is one of our newest partners, so I'm hoping in a few years' time we'll be stood back here with some amazing Teach for Portugal research as well.
Surely. Thank you. I think by now, there's one common theme that unites the audience, which is this is a group of people that's definitely committed to reducing, if not eliminating, this educational inequity. It moves everyone in the room at all different levels of the education system. We heard it also 2 days ago from the PISA results that confirm that the biggest predictor of a child's academic success and well-being is their background or where they come from. And so that means that a child by birth has their opportunities limited by their contacts, by their parents, by how much they earn, by their peers, by their teachers, and by their neighborhoods. And so I think, as per Professor Alberto's words in the beginning, is if even the massification of the higher education didn't achieve the goals that we were intending to, then so what else can we do? Because this is a group that won't stop until we see the needle moving in the direction that we believe is right. So how to maintain this commitment to social justice? Anything?
Other way.
Yeah, the other way. Let's see. And I think first it is important to say, as per Laura's word, the sharing. The first things that we can control as being part of a network is that we know what inputs generate results. So what these studies are telling us is that we know a set of things that we can do in terms of teacher selection, purpose, selection criteria, teacher training, and what drives those results both in the short term and in the long term. With that, in this early stage that we're in, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So first we share this vision, and the vision needs to be extremely high, that all children in Portugal one day have this opportunity to achieve their full potential, and that's not limited by where they come from. They all deserve this best education we can give them, and we don't mean 1 or 10 or 100, but all children, and that's the goal. So for that, we are one example of these 53 countries from the network, so we were the 49th country benefiting from all the experiences and learnings. And I think the biggest thing that we realize during this implementation is that so a child from a low socioeconomic background has more in common with another one from the similar background in another country than what it has with another child that is from a better background in their own country. So the solutions that Teach for All has found and is releasing and sharing with today and constantly with all the network partners is that whatever we're doing in the most underprivileged communities has results and impact and works, and therefore more countries are trying to implement. And so here we talked about retention, we talked about academic achievement, and so the problem is that it affects disproportionately these kids from poor backgrounds. In Portugal in particular, what we know is that the 52% of the children from low-income communities have been retained a year. And being retained also means that the academic success is lower and they already have a stamp of failure versus their colleagues, and it's a path towards dropout and then further lower opportunities. The problem is that it doesn't stay there, but it perpetuates. So This problem is extremely complex, and there's no one single solution to solve it. I think, as per the studies that Laura was saying, that whatever we're recruiting and putting in schools, these are catalysts, so people who will unite others and develop this collective leadership with them, with their students, and with the system, and with the parents and communities to achieve the goals and to achieve the vision that we want. So in Portugal, what do we want? So what are we aiming for? So we first have to set the goals and then the ways to get there. And we have these 4 goals. So we first find and recruit the young professionals with tremendous potential, and we do it with a higher proportion of male and science and math, because those were the biggest needs from the system. And we put them in the schools for 2 years, in the schools that serve the most underprivileged communities in Portugal for 2 years. They work inside the classroom with an existing teacher, and also outside the classroom with families and communities to develop academic and social emotional competencies. In Portugal, we've developed these 4 with the help of Teach for All, and also based on what we heard from the local community. So we've interviewed dozens of communities and children that come from these backgrounds and understood what are your motivations, what do you define as a leader, how do you see school, and what is really important to you. And with those, we identify these 4 areas that, being developed, are also important for these communities. So, of course, academic achievement, but in the sense of also setting high expectations, motivation, and effort. The sense of identity, in the sense of my community shapes who I am, and I'm part of a bigger world, so understanding where I am as part of the bigger picture. The metacognition, how do I learn, how do I manage my emotions, and leadership, of course. So what do we mean by leadership in this case? The ability to initiate and sustain change for myself and others. So it's not a hierarchical position. Leadership is doing, seeing a problem in front of me and taking action against it. In line with this, if this is the goal, we have to measure. And that's why also Laura's here to support us and has been supporting us throughout the implementation phase to set up measurement systems to understand, are we every day, are we working towards these goals that we have set? What are the actions that we can conduct every single day with the kids in classroom and outside that help us move towards the direction that we want? With this case, we're setting up systems both internally with using Teach for All methods, but also local partners here in Portugal to develop the mechanisms to help us understand the actions that generate the most impact. At the same time, after these 2 years, what we want is that these young professionals lead change throughout their career, both in the public and private sector. And that is the long-term change that we wish to see in the world. So where are we now? So in Portugal, we've done this launch 2 months ago. So we're doing the first cohort in 7 cities, in 11 schools, with 17 participants. And they're currently working already with 1,700 students from the low-income communities, and in the 5th and 6th grade. This is our starting point, and we're now already collecting a lot of the data to understand what is the baseline, where are we, and where are these students. And in some of these underprivileged communities, the starting point is extremely low. And I think that's it for today. We can go for questions, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.